welcome in on this Friday, June 21st. Usually represents the first day of summer. I was just outside and it said it felt like 93. I thought it felt like 100 degrees, and I came in feeling like it's pretty hot. And Jerry said he didn't have any, he didn't say he didn't have any sympathy for me. He said he's never going to complain about it being too hot. Sure, you like it this way.
I love it this way, Denny. Great to be in Michigan, Wolverine. Denny.
Wow.
Listen.
You get in the car, you don't even worry about putting on the air first, just jump right in, leather seats, tell everybody, let's go. This is how we like it. Remember, it'll be 0 around Christmas.
December, February, January, February, March, it's going to be freezing. So I ain't going to worry about it now. In fact, we just started getting hot weather.
Yeah. Well, first
in June, we're just getting hot weather. So, yes, I'm happy for it. You ain't going to get no sympathy from me, Denny, on the weather. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. Hey, listen, I was sweating on the golf cart the other night at Maple Hills in Grand Rapids, Michigan, doing my starter stuff, and sweating just being in the cart, and I loved it. Had to keep moving to keep cool.
Well, Jerry, now that I think about it, it's not a surprise. You know, football players in general you've got to be tough. I mean, it's not a week. Like, you have to be really tough. I think you gotta, you're in a collision on every play. You have to go through. You play somewhere like Michigan, you have to go through all of the seasons, and then on top of that, you coach for over 20 years. Is that how long you coach for? You can't let your kids, you probably had, short sleeves out there in winter, and you weren't talking about heat and humidity in August two-a-days, right? You were telling the guys, let's go. Good day to practice, right?
Hey, there's going to be something you're not going to like all the time, and so let's move on. No, I love the heat, and I always did.
What'd you do when you get your bell rung really big in football, Jerry? Just grab your mask and just get up, or did you ever lay there? Oh, you just crawl to your feet. What do you do? Just get up. Mates grab you.
We used to call it the $1 million buzz. You can't get that anywhere else. You got to go on a football field to get that buzz. I remember seeing shooting star, like little light flashes, and I think that's what they mean by shooting stars.
I think I saw that once. That was the last time I ever played football. So,
it was.
So those are the games. Okay. All right. Well, we've got a bunch of different things to talk about.
Huge weekend.
Including Michigan head coach Sherrone Moore. We'll see what Jerry thinks of how the coach has been doing so far. Phil Steele, the preview magazine, Phil, they are on the shelves, so people are diving into the prognosticator Steele to see where he has Michigan and everyone else. We'll touch on that. Jerry has looked into Minnesota, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who Michigan will play coming up towards the end of September. We've got a point on name, image, and likeness. We always take your feedback, but Ed, Jerry, we start with this recruiting weekend. They're all big in June right now. Let's just look at some of the guys that are coming in. First, I'll tell you, if you want to know who's coming in this weekend, last weekend, and next weekend, this weekend, well, you do something like this. You join the Maize and Blue Review, and you get all that information as it becomes available. You go to michigan.rivals.com. You find out all of that. I was just giving you an example today. I got in there, and Trevor McHugh was updating the best guess for the two deep and went position by position. I found that very interesting. And the Phil Steele story was right in there. Recruiting story next. Who's coming in and the temperature gauge on all those guys. So all of that. Again, go to michigan.rivals.com. They got the posting board there, the Den, which I frequent day and night and on the weekend. So it's a lot of fun. We'll see you there. Here are the commitments right now. Michigan has 8 of them. And when you look at the very tippy top there, you got quarterback Carter Smith. He was one of the first 3 Michigan players to commit to this class. He's coming in for his official visit. Now, Jerry, when you're a commitment already, you're coming in for your official visit, and you're the quarterback, you're kind of I would think you're going to be the ringleader for everybody this weekend and reaching out and doing self, as well, right?
So here's my thing on Carter. I haven't seen him play or don't know much about him. I'm looking at him, nice size, 6'3", 200 pounds. Coming out of Fort Myers, he's playing in the competitive football league all the time down there in Fort Myers, Florida. Huge football area. Good school, Bishop Verrat. It's a good parochial school. The thing I like about this guy is he's coming in on this big weekend, and he's actually taking a leadership role. And this is really something that kind of tells you where you're at with the kids. I mean, when this young man is coming in, and it seems like he's a solid commit. He's not going anywhere. He's with us. What does he want to do? He wants to bring in his buddies. He wants to bring in some more talent to come in with them. So he's going to be competing for a national championship. Attitude-wise, just from the initial stages, it looks a lot like what we just lost with JJ. I'm liking the leadership of that, embracing these guys and trying to get them to come here.
There was a running back that was in earlier this week. There was a camp unofficial just a couple of days ago. Well, you think about it for a second, but then you look and you think about the wide receivers. You mentioned it with the quarterback. It wasn't something that I was thinking about, but you get a chance to get some wide receivers that are coming in. That's probably going to help you as a quarterback being able to go through that. That's, like what we were talking about.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at this list, and there's a lot of wide receivers on this list.
Right.
So, I mean, for him to come in here on this weekend and look to be a leader in embracing and trying to get these guys to commit to Michigan, I like what I'm seeing so far right off the bat from him.
Here's a 4-star wide receiver, Andrew Marsh. I think Michigan would like him. Now, Taz Williams is one that I have been following for a long time. Michigan has popped up on his list. This is a 4-star out of Red Oak in Texas. Everyone is in. It says he's a 4-star, but I kind of feel like he's a 5-star with the teams that he's considering and the teams that have offered him. I have not watched him play. That's just looking at the teams that are after him, the teams that he lists. This would be a great get. Michigan is in the mix, and he's in there. Go ahead, Carter Smith. See what you can do with these wide receivers. Here's another one. Carter Smith's going to did they get a chance to go over if they want, Jerry, to throw the football around? How does that work?
I don't know. I'm sure they can go find a football somewhere and just jack around a little bit and have a little fun.
All right.
I don't think, Denny, when we got recruited, it was wintertime.
Okay.
It was wintertime, and we were just looking to have a good time in the winter and make our decision from there. These guys they're recruited all year long. That's the one thing I'm not crazy about college football right now. The biggest thing is that this recruiting process is going on so long and so deep and so early. It's just, I don't know if it's really that good for the kids, to be honest with you.
John has got his finger on the pulse of recruiting. He says that Marsh, the wide receiver, canceled his visit.
Yes,
make it to Harbor, and I'll take that as good news too. John liking the Caden Strayhorn prospect, the son of the former Spartan captain, and he says the Spartans are scrambling, trying to find excuses. And of course, if you're a Michigan fan, you don't mind, the Spartans scrambling. Michigan's got a tight end commit already coming in, but here's another one 4-star. And if you're a tight end and you want to play at Michigan, I like what they have going. Eli Owens is already in as a verbal commitment on January the 4th, and he's going to be making the rounds. Now, Hardy Watts.
There was one other commitment. Wait, let me see if that was him, Denny. That I was looking at. Who was that? Yeah, this Eli Owens, this young man, you got him down at 6'3", 220. I had him listed at 6'1", 243. Whatever the case, this is a fullback type talent. This is where they're bringing him in basically to back, to compete at Bredesen's position. And that's really the nice thing. When you look at Michigan, if you're a tight end or a fullback type player, Michigan has got to appear number 1 or 2 on your list, bar none. I mean, you have to consider Michigan does so much with its tight ends, so much with its fullbacks, so much in that traditional I formation offense that if you're in those positions, and we all love our tight ends, we know tight ends would make a huge difference on any team. If you're a tight end and you're a fullback type player, you've got to be looking at Michigan first and foremost. In my opinion, that's in my opinion.
Well, we like your opinion, Jerry. So that's we're going to take that one to the bank. Hardy Watts is down to 3 teams. Michigan is one of them. Clemson is the other, and Wisconsin. Jerry was asking me a couple of minutes ago if he was related to the Watt brothers, TJ and JJ, and considering that he is interested in Wisconsin, I could see where you had asked that question. And he kind of looks like JJ, but
he kind of looks like JJ. Look at him.
Yeah, I didn't see anything online that they were related, but yeah, maybe they're second cousins removed or something. Here's
that kid looks like a heck of an offensive lineman, and that would be a huge pickup for us if we can get that young man Watts. He looks like he's got a lot going for him.
Here's who John was talking about, Strayhorn, who's got connections with Michigan State. A lot of these kids, Michigan does a good job down at IMG. That's a hell of a football program down there.
The other place that I see a lot of similarity, there are a lot of parochials, a lot of private type schools that these recruits are coming out of, and they're very competitive. They're playing great competition all the time. Nobody wants to play them in the first place, and so when they do play somebody, it's great competition. So I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, we're going after kids that are competing on a daily, at a high level, and we're going after those type of kids. So that's a good thing. I like that.
Love to look at that offensive line down at IMG. One of their guards, 6'3", 286 in high school. Man, that's a monster. Jerry, this is one that Michigan's got to do some work with to see. He's a commitment. Mr. Marshall, but he's been taking other official visits. It'd be nice to see if they could get him back and feel like he's, fully committed after.
I think this is a good sign. And again, like I said last week, Denny, I mean, when you're 18, 17 years old and everybody's coming with the kitchen sink, everything in the kitchen sink at you and throwing everything at you, your head's spinning a little bit. And you're trying to figure out what's the best place and try to make the best decision for not only yourself but your family. And this young man just thought he needed to go down to Auburn and see what was down there, see what was offered down there. Good sign that he's coming back here and coming in this weekend, and we'll see. I mean, all these recruits have a long way to go. Heck, they got a senior season to go through yet. So there's a lot that's going to be decided here in the next couple months. Couple weeks, and we'll go from there. But I like the fact that he's coming in this weekend again. I don't even think he really. It's not. Is that I think it is an official visit, but I don't really think he had to. And I think it's a good sign that he's coming in.
I think everything you say would apply to Bobby Kanka too. He committed, and then last week he was up at Michigan State, so he's committed, but he's still taking visits. Jerry, you just mentioned, is it an official visit? If it's not, the way things work now, official visit to me always meant that you were getting everything paid for by Michigan. If there's if there's no barriers now, which I don't think there are, why isn't everybody basically on an official visit? Why isn't everybody getting everything paid for? I don't know. Maybe they have to still delineate between that because technically they only can have so many official visits. I don't know, but it seems to me like everybody could be on an official visit now.
I want to point out something. John Schultz, I hope I'm saying that right. John Schultz is pointing out that Marsh canceled the visit to Oklahoma. And again, that's another good sign. He's canceling a visit to another school in the SEC. He's coming back to Michigan where he's committed to. So I think that's another good sign that we're in a pretty good position with Andrew Marsh.
Michigan would love to get Maxwell Roy. I think if we had – he is on my top 6 wish list right now. Mr. Roy is a defensive tackle. Michigan's going to have to beat Ohio State and Rutgers services, but he's a hell of a player. And they need some big fella on the defensive line. He fits the bill there. I'd like to see him.
Yeah, we're gonna need some players because we know we're gonna lose 2 right off the bat, 3 after this year. So we definitely have to start filling that position. And I'm looking at this list, and there are a lot of good defense, or a lot of defense linemen on that list. I like that.
Yeah, maybe Michigan's got some work to do here, but hey, they're getting a visit from NOB, and maybe they'll be able to sway him. There's some other guys' names here that I don't have their thumbnails up, but there's kind of the list, and they did have a big tackle from 26 that was coming in.
Yep.
As well. So that's how that looked. And here are the guys that they have so far. So there you go. We move on to Phil Steele, the college football preview magazine guru, and his magazine hit the shelves going to this weekend. And Phil picked the Big Ten. He's got Ohio State and Oregon as the leaders, tying for first, followed by Penn State, then Michigan. And he's got Michigan State bringing up the rear in the entire conference at number 18. Jerry, when you see these picks, what do you think?
Well, I went back and looked at his picks last year. He had Georgia number 1. That's a fail. The only one out of the top 4, the only one he had in the right position, I will say, in the top 4 was Alabama. He had Michigan at 3. And so he was thinking Alabama would lose to Georgia, beat everybody else, so there would be 2 SEC teams in the Final 4, which was not the case at all. In fact, Alabama, in my opinion, was very lucky to get in. You look at his other picks, Texas down at 11 last year. Washington and Oregon, 14 and 15. So, he's making picks and he doesn't, he's messed up somewhat last year. He didn't have, in my opinion, he didn't have a real great year last year predicted. He's got Michigan number 4. I'm never going to put, and never's a long time, and I shouldn't say never, but I'm going to try always to avoid picking against the defending national champion and put them in 4th in the conference, especially when you see their defense as being potentially one of the top 2, if not the best defense in the country. Putting up Michigan in number 4, I think, is kind of a cheap slap. I think he's trying to get back at us for some of the allegations last year. Michigan State at 18, I think, is an absolute zero. There's no way that I can see Michigan State finishing last in the Big Ten. You got a number of different teams that are going to be below them, and Michigan State is going to make a move here. Their coach is good. This guy is a good coach. He's brought in some good players. Getting his quarterback. Michigan State's going to be better than people think, and in a couple 3 years, they could be very formidable.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to have their opinion on it. If I was picking, I would have Ohio State and Oregon 1, 2. I would have Michigan 3. I understand why people are putting Penn State at 3. They don't have to play Michigan. So, and if you look around, they've got a nice path as they work through that. So who you play, you can't say, when you play them, but who you play is going to be big. And Penn State's got a nice schedule. So I understand.
Well, when I'm looking at these top four, he's saying not only are we going to lose to Oregon and Ohio State, he's saying we're going to lose to somebody else, while Penn State is going to pretty much run the table. And Oregon and Ohio State are pretty much going to run the table.
Maybe. Yeah, well, he's got this is who he thinks is going to play in the Big Ten championship game: Ohio State and Oregon. Yeah, having Penn State with one more victory, you can think this is way off, like Keegan. He thinks it's way off too. That's what it's all about when you're making those predictions. And so we'll see how that plays out. But that's what Phil had to say about it. That gets us to Minnesota. And while we're on Phil Steele, why don't I just tell you where Phil Steele picked Minnesota, way down towards the bottom. He's got the Golden Gophers at 15. Athlons, I looked to see where they had Minnesota ranked. They have got them 13th. So there you go. Rowing the boat here with PJ Fleck, who I have always thought was an outstanding coach. But last year, 5-7, that's going to leave a little bit of a mark. They're bringing in a grad transfer quarterback from New Hampshire, and away you go. That's going to be a big deal if this kid's going to be any good, this grad transfer. What did you think about Minnesota as you were taking a look at them?
First of all, the thing that stood out to me, that the one thing that was really enlightening to me was that Minnesota's spring game was not on YouTube. And so I did a little digging, and from what I understand, I hope I'm correct. I don't want to send out misinformation here, but from what I understand, Minnesota does not put their game on YouTube because they want people to subscribe to their channel, and that money gets divvied up to the players in NIL. So here was another innovation that's coming out of NIL, how teams are going to try and pay their players and get up into that position where they can afford other players and keep their program going strong. But that was kind of enlightening to me. I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it. And from what I understood, you have to be a subscription holder, and that money goes to the players in the NIL. So very interesting way. And this is kind of that imagination on how to get money. How do we generate money for our players? Remember, the revenue sharing, there's going to have to be some kind of price ceiling. There's going to have to be some cap. NIL, I think that's the Wild West, and I don't think you're going to be able to police that too much. Minnesota, let's look at Minnesota. PJ Fleck is definitely on the hot seat. We play Minnesota right after USC, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to look at Minnesota a little bit. PJ Fleck is definitely on the hot seat. I think they can beat North Carolina. I really do. I think they can beat North Carolina, especially up in Minnesota. And I think they can beat Rhode Island and Nevada. Iowa at Minnesota, I think that's a winnable game. They could conceivably come into Ann Arbor 4-0 playing Michigan in the Big House. And that's what I see from them. Last year, Minnesota, what were their problems? Specific problem was defense.
Yeah, defense.
Defense was horrible. Last year, they were 6-0 when they held people to 24 and less, and 0-7 when they scored 24 or more. And the only exception was the Iowa game, where no, I think that wasn't. Excuse me, that Iowa was the same thing. But Minnesota has made a huge push on their defense. They came over. They got Corey Heatherman from Rutgers, I believe it was. Yeah, he spent the last 2 years at Rutgers. And before that, he's at James Madison. So if you're doing any homework on James Madison, you know that they're one of the top Division I AA schools or FBS schools in the country year in and year out. So they have definitely identified a huge problem. and they, in their opinion, came out with a great hire on their defensive coordinator, and I think it is a good hire. I think when you've got that kind of experience, when you're playing at James Madison, running deep into the season, extra games there. You spent 2 years at Rutgers. Rutgers has always been a very decent defensive team. I think Minnesota's defense is going to be much improved, and I think they have a shot at surprising some people this year. Offensively, they big offensive lineman, Ursay, all Big Ten returner. Quinn Carroll, 2 big offensive linemen are going to be anchoring that line. And Minnesota's always had a very decent offensive line. Running back, Darius Taylor. And then they did real nice job in the transfer portal. You mentioned the quarterback. Max what's his name? Brosmar.
I didn't look at his name. I just knew that he was from New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, Division I AA, and I think he was Player of the Year or something like that. Transfers to Minnesota, and Callum McCarris, or whatever his name is from last year, he transfers to Rutgers. So little movement there. I think, like I said, they're going to be a much improved team on defense. I think they made a real effort to do something on defense, and they've got some good players coming back. Both their edge players are returning, and they were both very sound last year. Lindenberg returns from a leg injury from 2023 at linebacker, and their DBs were good. Their DBs were solid. So the other thing that this is something I'm wondering how much people pay attention to. Kicking game. Minnesota's got both kickers coming back. They've got their number one kicker. They're all Big Ten place kicker coming back, and their punter. So Minnesota could have a very good kicking game, and that's huge. That's a third of the game, and it's huge. And he's got a good position there. So with their defense, I think Minnesota could be improved. I'm looking at their schedule. Like I said, I think they can beat North Carolina at home. I think they can beat Rhode Island and Nevada at home, and I think they can beat Iowa at home. Even with their Iowa's new offensive coordinator, I think they can beat Iowa at home. I think they can also beat Maryland, and I think they can beat UCLA on the road. So I've got them down for about 6 wins. I got them losing to Michigan, Rutgers, Penn State, and Wisconsin. And I got bubble games against USC and Illinois. So we'll see what happens with those 2 games. But I could see Minnesota coming into Ann Arbor 4-0.
I am going to look to see what their totals are. Michigan's total is 9.5. And I'm looking at one of the gambling sites. Minnesota's regular season win total 5.5. Jerry, I kind of like the over there.
I like the over on that one. I'm sorry, I like the over. I'm not saying Minnesota at 15. I don't see it. I think they're going to be a much improved team this year.
Say Ohio State 10.5. Let's see where they have Michigan State 4.5. Northwestern and Michigan State with the lowest totals in the Big Ten, both at 4.5. So that's what the Vegas sites think about them. So that's where we're sitting when it comes down to Minnesota. All right, you talked about getting creative with NIL. Some people mentioned that they thought that here's John saying he didn't think that they televised their game to prevent their players from getting poached in the portal. You've got a contract with the Big Ten Network. So if the Big Ten Network wanted to tape that, I think, or show that, I think that they would have. But BN is saying he would be surprised if. I don't know. I taped Ohio State's and watched it. I taped Michigan State's and Penn State's games. I didn't look at all the other ones, but that's not looking for different ways. I don't think there's going to be. Michigan is so phobic about anybody watching their practice. I could see having some kind of pass where, they brought in some video And, they showed some of the, the practice footage, and you could, get some kind of premium subscription or something. I think people would be all over that. If you did it for a recruiting weekend and you showed the guys or something, people would be all over that. That's a revenue stream. I don't know. I'm sure that they think about it, talk about it, and then actually doing it. I'm surprised, though, Jerry, that a team like Michigan, a couple years ago, they did the all or nothing deal that Amazon carried for the season. I'm surprised that they have not gone into something like that where then they can pay the players through that. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, the thing like they did with the Lions, the Hard Knocks, it was people liked it so much. And when it's your team there and you're just and you just have to be in the meeting, right? Like, you've been through all of that, but 99% of us have not just seen a meeting room and watched somebody talk for a couple of minutes and some of the fun things that they do, whether it's somebody singing or, jumping on one leg and barking like a dog. I don't know, whatever, the guys do. They could come up with some very creative revenue streams there if they wanted. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of that from teams.
One of the things you had on that list, Denny, was Sherrone Moore. And this is something we're going to see how effective Sherrone is in the future. These are the kind of things. When Jimmy came in, let's remember what happened when Jim came in. He came in and he basically gutted the old Michigan camp and created satellites all over the country.
Yeah.
Why did he do that? He went after recruits that we were not going to get, or we weren't getting because we weren't in front of them. And so he took his show to the recruits, to the satellites, and got the recruits to come in at different areas of the country. What else did he do?
A bunch of stuff. Signing with the stars, traveling the world.
Traveling the world. I mean, think about it, Danny. You're a 17, 18-year-old kid. There's a chance you could be going to Italy in a couple of years. That's a hell of a vacation. That's a hell of an incentive for a 17, 18-year-old kid. Hell of a learning experience. I lived over in Italy for a year. It was a great learning experience. But these are the kinds of things that we're going to see in the future. Is Sherrone creative enough to try to expand that base, try to expand that NIL base, get more recruits in here, get better leverage with more money with that NIL. So these are the kinds of things we're going to see where the rubber meets the road. How good are coaches? How effective are coaches creating revenue? Because that's what they're going to be doing now. They're going to be in charge and responsible for trying to get revenue up, and getting revenue up is winning, number one. Absolutely. And then after that, you come up with your ideas.
Yeah, not only that signing with the stars, the whole president, it was like the Oscars, that first one. They had Tom Brady in, and I was just sitting back because I know Harbaugh is good with the X's and O's and as a CEO, as a coach and everything, but then he just kept doing all of these other things that, milking cows, out in Wisconsin, climbing
trees and did sleepovers in Rockford, Michigan.
Right. I mean, he would do anything. He's, going out to the racetrack. I mean, he was really something. I think that, I don't know if Sherrone Moore, I mean, he's involved with it, but Michigan, when it comes to NIL, everything, they've got so many different things in play that they seem like they've tried a multitude of different things, platforms, areas that they can do it, companies, advisors, and one of those or two of those things are going to stick. I think that they should be applauded for doing that. I know a lot of people are just like, just pay the kids flat out or whatever. It's part strategy, how they're doling out their money and everything else. But the way that they've picked up, I don't know, you could criticize them still, but I think where they're at, they look like they've got a good plan and they're executing it. I think that you should feel good if you're a Michigan fan on how things are going. Yeah, with recruiting, with NIL, I'm not somebody that's always just, put my head up in the sunshine there. If I didn't think they were doing good, I would tell people. But I can tell that they have a strategy and they've got a plan and they're executing it. And it seems to be working pretty good for me.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly, Denny. Absolutely. Michigan has done a great job with NIL, great job in the transfer portal. They've done a great job maneuvering through these difficult waters and these uncharted waters. And Michigan's done a great job. Now that's up to Sherrone to keep this going and keep the creativity on why I want to come to Michigan. Why do I want to go to Michigan? So.
Yeah. Well, this last part, Keegan saying he brought the end to the NCAA, talking about Harbaugh. Yeah. Well,
great, Keegan. I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Part of what he was doing, they were in that rule book and they were running right up to that line on everything that they could do and think about. And
well, good business people are supposed to do that. They're supposed to take advantage of the loopholes that the bureaucracies and idiocracies create. So,
yeah, I just
think power to you.
It's an amazing story to me as I sit here because in 2000, easily he could have been removed, and you couldn't have said. I mean, you could have complained if you wanted to, sure. But you could have said, well, 0 for 5 probably would have been 0 for 6 against Ohio State. Nobody's going to be able to survive that. And to turn it around and then do what he did, culminating in the national championship, is, stuff of legend. Now, Sherrone Moore, you mentioned it. We said we were going to talk about him. He's got to follow that up. He's following the legend. He's following Jim Harbaugh and a perfect season. That's both good and bad, but Moore hasn't done anything where I would look and say, oh, he's really trying to stand out or he's really trying to put his stamp. He's just, I don't know if he's just got his head down and he's working. It is a little bit of a honeymoon, but we've seen recruiting and we've seen the transfer portal, those tangible things that we can see from afar. And we just commented on how he's doing there. He looks like he's doing a good job. He'll be, baptism he'll under fire, whatever. But as soon as they lose a game, everybody will be, I'll be going nuts. Hopefully that's not for the first few months of the season. So we'll see. But so far, so good with Sherrone Moore, I would say.
Absolutely. Sherrone's done a fantastic job. I think his coaching staff is outstanding. Wink on the defensive side. And Esposito he's really doing a nice job. And I told you this when he first hired in, Denny. My relationship with Lou Esposito, I know him as a very good recruiter. The kids love him. The kids love playing for him. And that's what you want from a coach. You want kids that want to sell out and play hard for you. And I think Lou does that. And I think it pays huge dividends in recruiting. When you look at Lou Esposito, he brought in some quality players in the Western Michigan. Might have over delivered there. I mean, you got Fisk going to Florida State 2 years in. You did a heck of a job getting a great player into your facility.
Good stuff. If I'm going to alert the people out there, we've got 4 or 5 minutes. If you have a question, you have a point, Jerry will answer your questions. I'll do my best if whatever's on your mind as a Michigan fan. So we throw it to the people out there.
Blake, I agree with you. That was a good one. Third base is having a meltdown over there on that one. He doesn't like that, losing that recruiter. So, we'll see. We got 2 off them this year. We got a running backs coach and a recruiter this year. So,
yes, BN says he would argue Sherrone has done a lot for recruiting so far. He just stole one of Ohio State's best on-campus recruiters. And then Jerry, good point. Not only did he get the on-campus recruiter, but also the running backs coach. So that is something to take a look at for sure. I've got a feedback question. Do you think all of the changes are good for college football as we head into 24? Of the headlines, Jerry, I think we all know them. No more divisions in the Big Ten, and then also a 12-team playoff. Those 2 big things. Is this going to be good? You've got all of these old Pac-12 teams that are now dissolved into the conference. Michigan's playing a couple of them, and so you've got that as well. Is this good for college football, these changes? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm looking at this thing, and I see a lot of good. I see a tremendous amount of good. I've always been a proponent of paying the players. I don't like the fact that these kids we were not getting paid. We weren't allowed to have a job during our school year or during our tender. So there were a lot of handcuffed things that, we were living hand to mouth, basically. I mean, we didn't have any money to go out and hang out and do that kind of stuff. So I'm real happy about, and for people to sit there and say, well, they're getting a free education. No, first of all, there ain't no free. There ain't no free. Number one. Number two, many kids that went through and got scholarships in different conferences never got a degree. And in my opinion, if the NCAA was doing anything right, they should have been policing these universities and making sure these kids were getting all the way through their education. That should have been the least they could have done. They did this to themselves. They created this monster themselves. They would not give up any revenue to the players. They wouldn't do it. They had to go to court and get beat up time and time again. And that's why I've always been a proponent for these kids to get paid. Heck, you don't come into Michigan Stadium to see the NCAA. You come into Michigan Stadium to see Anthony Carter, Butch Woolfolk, Corum. You come in to see the players, not the NCAA, not the university president. You come in to see the game, the players. Those players should have been paid. They should have been paid all along, and it's about time. So, number one, I'm happy with the payment. I'm happy with the revenue sharing. The NIL is a Wild West. It'll bottom out somewhere because people are going to want return on their money. So it'll bottom out somewhere. But NIL, that's advertising. That's a great thing, and that's a great way for players to make some money. The transfer portal, I always liked the ability to move around. If coaches can move, why can't players? Yes, I agree with that totally. Now, do I think that they should be able to go year one? No. I think there should be some kind of contract, 2 years, and it can be negotiated if you want to. But I think there should be some kind of minimum before you transfer. I think you could stay at one place for 2 years, give it a shot, and then move from there. And there probably should be a limit on how many times you can move around. I'm not crazy about moving every year, and we're going to have a bidding war on quarterbacks every year. No, I'm not crazy about that. But as far as the transfer portal, yes, I agree that we should have the ability to move. I just think there should be some policing on it. The revenue, absolutely a great thing. I think the players should have been paid all along. The thing I'm not crazy about is all the recruiting and how early, like I said earlier today, the recruiting, how early it starts, how heavy it is, the down weeks and all the other stuff. I think there's a better way. They can come up with a better way to do something there.
For the longest time, people would say, like, I would call myself a traditionalist with college football, and yet I was a traditionalist. But all those things that you said, I'm with you on. And I never liked that they just voted at the end. I always wanted, so I could be a traditionalist, but yet I wanted to see the way that they got to champion different. And I never liked the non-conference games where they're all just cupcakes. The best part of college football on a Saturday is seeing big-time teams play other big-time teams. We're going to sell a little bit of that, not having the non-conference games mean everything in the world, where if you lost one, you're pretty much knocked out. But the part that you're trading off is that you're going to have some of these games at the end. I think that part is great. Now, the one piece is the championship games, and that's what Keegan was saying. He doesn't think it seems necessary. We talked about this, and I was just looking at the rules this morning. If you win your conference champion, you get the automatic bid to the college football playoff. And if you're in the top 4 of the conference championship, ranked in the top 4, you get a bye. Well, that's always going to be the Big Ten. You win the Big Ten conference championship, you get a bye. So now, you go into that last game, you certainly would never want to lose it. But the championship game is going to mean more than the one before. If you're both going to be in there, you might rest your quarter. I mean, that's, you might do that, but I think the part about it is that they might move the Michigan-Ohio State game, but there's so many other games too. You can't. Well, you got to let it breathe for a while and see how it plays out and see what we like about it. Jerry, as much as I was a traditionalist, I can recall, hearing about Michigan Stadium when I was young, and my uncle used to always say, you won't be impressed. You'll drive up and it looks like a high school stadium,
right?
But then when you get inside, it's the sea of 110,000 and everything else. And so when they were trying to do the renovations, the first time they put this big halo around it and these footballs of excitement. And I thought it looked terrible, probably like a lot of other people. But I was just, last week we were driving around Ann Arbor. We went by the stadium. It couldn't be any more perfect with the brick and everything that they put up there. So as much as I say about the traditions, then they do something. And when it's good, it's good. I mean, the stadium looks great. And the thing that I think that they'll do with college football that I like too is that they're not just going to stay stuck if the thing doesn't look like it's working. It'll be good news actually if Michigan's going into the final game against Ohio State and it's always Michigan, Ohio State. Well, great. Well, Michigan's doing really well, but they might tweak it and move Michigan, or they might do away with I can't see them doing away with the conference championship games, even in the NFL. They still, for you win your division and it means something, where you get a home playoff game. So I think it's going to be okay that way. But they will change things, and people criticize and say, well, it's too much like the NFL. I really like the NFL. So there's things about the NFL. I mean, if you could take some of the good things, I know I said a lot there, but I think these changes are good for college football. I don't think it's ever been better.
I like the extra the tournament, the extra game teams in the for the race for the national championship. Denny, I've never been a huge fan of putting emphasis on the tournament over the entire season. I've never been that way. I've always in basketball. I always thought if you have two teams, one wins the season, one wins the tournament. The one that wins the season should be getting that number one. In my opinion, I mean, doing the work through the season, in my opinion, is better than getting hot at the end of the season and winning a tournament. So, I'm kind of with them. The Big Ten championship game, okay, you want to have it, but my opinion is that the emphasis should be on the season and the Big Ten champion. What if a 9-0 or 9-3 team is in the Big Ten championship game, loses to the other opponent in the Big Ten championship game, and then beats them in that game? Now all of a sudden 9-3 is better than 11-1. I'm not crazy about that.
Here's Brian, who wants the Big Ten to have 3 matchups on championship weekend with the 6 top teams against teams that they haven't played in the regular season. I don't know about – I'd have to feel that one through a little bit. I don't think that's great. Getting a truer champion is good. How about lopping off one of the non-conference games so you could play an extra one? I could see that. Rico – you can't want a 12-team playoff, but want the regular season to be for all the marbles. I don't know. That's what you like the 12-team playoff, but you like the regular season championship.
The regular season is for jockeying for the playoffs. That's it. That's what I'm saying. The regular season is jockeying for the playoffs. You win the regular season, you're in the NFL, you win the regular season, San Francisco gets the home field advantage at the end of the year. That's what I'm trying to point to right there.
Yeah. Well, I like it. We're getting closer. First day of summer traditionally, although I believe it started yesterday for some reason. You'd have to, really look at the summer solstice and why that happened. I didn't know that, but here we are. It's summertime, Jerry. It feels like it. Great job. And we look forward to talking with you tomorrow or next week. Sorry.
Denny, appreciate all you do. You do a fantastic job, and hail to the victors.
There he is, Jerry Diorio. He says, smash that like button. And we all
smash that like button, folks.
We enjoy, for those listening on the podcast. I see the numbers there, so I know some of you are hearing this. Give us that 5-star review and give us those comments. We need some love over there from your podcast listeners.